Welcome everyone! In today's biology class, we're going to explore the most fundamental unit of life, the cell. So let's dive right in.
So, have you ever stopped to wonder, from the tiniest little insect to a gigantic whale, what are they all made of? The answer is actually pretty simple, but it's so powerful. Cells. Yep, every single living thing is made of cells. The best way to think about cells is as the building blocks of life. It's like a house is built from thousands of individual bricks, right? Well, all living organisms are built from these tiny units we call cells. So how do these building blocks actually come together? Well, look at it this way. A single cell is like one brick. Now, when a bunch of similar cells work together, they form a tissue. That's kind of like our wall. Then, tissues combine to form an organ, like the heart or the stomach, and boom, you've got a room. Organs then work together in an organ system, and finally, all those systems create the entire body, our complete house. See? Pretty simple when you think of it like that.
But here's a question. Is everything made of so many cells? Not at all. Some organisms live their entire lives as just one single cell. And that brings us to our very next topic, unicellular versus multicellular organisms. This is actually quite simple, really. The prefix uni means one, so unicellular organisms are made of just a single cell. That one little cell does everything, eating, breathing, the whole shebang. And then multi means many. So multicellular organisms, like us, are made of tons of cells, where different groups of cells do different jobs. And here are a few examples of those single-celled organisms. We've got bacteria, blue-green algae, and cyanobacteria. You'll definitely want to remember these names for your exams. They're really important examples.
Okay, so now that we know about the number of cells, let's go a little deeper. Let's zoom right inside the cell itself to understand the next big classification, the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells.
First up, we have prokaryotic cells. The key word to remember here is simple. These are the most basic types of cells out there, and their biggest identifying feature is that they do not have a true, well-defined nucleus.
Take a look at this diagram. You see all that jelly-like stuff inside? That's the cytoplasm. And notice this. It's genetic material. It's DNA. It isn't contained inside a membrane. It's just kind of floating around in a region of the cytoplasm. See? A really simple structure.
Now let's check out the other type, eukaryotic cells. So if prokaryotic cells were simple, eukaryotic cells are complex. Their main feature is that they have a proper, membrane-bound nucleus that holds all the genetic material safely inside. This extra protection is what allows for more complex life forms to develop.
Wow, now look at the difference here. There is so much going on inside this cell. First and foremost, you can see a proper membrane-bound nucleus, which keeps the genetic material safe. And then you see all these little structures called organelles, like the lysosome, which cleans up waste, and the mitochondria, which creates energy. Each one has its own special job. It's honestly like a busy city inside one tiny cell.
Okay, let's quickly summarize this. Now, this table is super important, everyone. The main difference. The nucleus is absent in prokaryotic cells, but present in eukaryotic cells. Examples of prokaryotes are bacteria and cyanobacteria. And examples of eukaryotes? Well, we're eukaryotes. Humans, animals, plants, we all have eukaryotic cells. Since we're eukaryotes, let's focus on this type a little more. Now we're going to compare two major, very common types of eukaryotic cells, plant cells and animal cells. Okay, take a really close look at these two diagrams. On the left, we've got a typical plant cell, and on the right, an animal cell. Now, before I tell you, can you spot any differences just by looking? Go ahead and pause for a second and see if you can find at least two. All right, let's break it down. The first and probably most important difference is the cell wall. Plant cells have this rigid outer cell wall that gives them support, but animal cells don't have one. Second, plant cells have something called plastids, which help them make food through photosynthesis. Animal cells don't have those. Third, check out the vacuole. In plant cells, there's this one huge central vacuole that's used for storage and maintaining shape. Animal cells, on the other hand, might have a few small ones. And finally, lysosomes, the cell's cleanup crew, are usually present in animal cells but absent in plant cells. And that was our lesson for today. Let's do a quick recap to make sure all those important points really stick.
So, to sum it all up,
We learned that cells are the building blocks of life, and they form a hierarchy all the way up to the body. We saw that organisms can be either unicellular or multicellular. We then classified cells into the simple prokaryotic type, which has no nucleus, and the complex eukaryotic type, which does have a nucleus. And finally, we compared plant and animal cells, noting their key differences like the cell wall.
I'll leave you with one final question to think about. Why do you think a plant, which can't move around, needs a rigid cell wall for structure, while an animal, which can move, doesn't? Really think about it. Your answer will tell you a lot about how structure relates to function in biology. So if you enjoyed this explainer and found it helpful, please hit that like button, let me know what you think in the comments, and of course, be sure to share it with your friends.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more helpful videos. For extra practice questions, join us on Telegram. The link is in the description. And hey, if there's a specific topic you want me to cover next, let me know down in the comments. I'll do my best to make a video on it.